Adam, welcome to the Chasing Creativity podcast.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Dude, I am happy to be here too. And it's fun. Like, now that we're talking like this, it's going to just feel so cringe because we're recording this a couple times.
Yeah.
But you know what? Fuck it, dude. I'm let the people know what's really happening. But dude, so I think one thing that is important for the conversation is because I feel this way when I start talking with someone who start out a call, like I kind of get this sense of what the conversation is going to be like based on like right when we start talking, we'll just in some scenarios we'll just jump right in and we just got to like pump the brakes. And that was definitely us right now. We just went deep for like 20 minutes.
And we paid the price too.
we paid the price. But hey, dude, it's gonna be fine now, dude. And we fixed it. All the audio and shit is good. So, you know, sometimes it I don't know, there's gotta be like there's like a catchphrase out there somewhere where it's like anything that is worthwhile comes with hard work. That's what it is, and that's what we just did.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. Makes me feel a little better.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So, but yeah, so there's a lot I want to talk about today because you write amazing music. We started talking about a lot of stories you have along the way that are you were blowing my mind right off the bat. So there's a lot I want to talk about, and there's just it seems like you've had a very interesting path so far. But where did this all start for you? So kind of take us back to when you got interested in music, when you got interested in writing electronic music, how that all kind of started.
So going way back, my first interest in music was actually playing the drums. I think I was in 6th grade, and I was just endlessly begging my parents to get me a drum set. And I think they got me this little electronic drum pad, and were like, stick with that for a few months. If you still like it, then we'll think about it. And fortunately, they gave in, I think, in 7th grade. And then I took drum lessons for a couple of years. And I kind of tried to be in bands and stuff, but no one ever really cared as much as I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting like this old like analog kind of recorder from my grandparents for one of my birthdays. And I got this, I don't even remember what kind, but it wasn't a nice guitar, but it was still an electric guitar, and I had no idea how to play it, but I just tried to make my own songs, and they weren't any good, but I still had a good time doing it. And yeah, then I kind of dropped doing that, like the whole band thing and recording myself for a few years. And then right around when I graduated high school, that's when my friend introduced me to Justice.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was honestly the first electronic music I'd ever heard, because I always listened to, like when I was playing the drums and stuff, I was obsessed with people like Dream Theater and shit.
Oh, wow. Great drumming.
Really not even close to what I'm doing.
Right.
So yeah, that was, the whole Justice thing was super mind blowing. And that's when I was like, oh, like what do they use?
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I got Ableton, which wasn't even what they used. They used GarageBand, which is insane.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's fucking crazy. Yeah.
At least that's what they made Cross on, from my understanding.
Damn. Jesus.
So yeah, like I got Ableton, and I was like, wow, I'm gonna be the next Justice. This is gonna be awesome. And then after like 2 days, it's like this is way too hard. I don't want to do this. Because Ableton is a very complicated beast.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then I kind of mellowed out for a while, because I was starting college. And I think it was basically the end of my freshman year is when I was kind of like, I think, like, I don't really care about anything else. Like, I know I'll still get my degree and everything, but like, I'm gonna take a shot at this whole music thing. And then I kind of eased my way into it because I still wanted to do well in school. And then, yeah, by the end of college, it was like, I got to either go for this and really dive in or enter the adult world.
Right.
And I chose the first option.
Dude, that's really cool that, I think I've been fortunate to have that type of conversation with a lot of producers, but that's really interesting because you were at the stage where you kind of were dabbling in production, but you knew it was something really powerful for yourself. And then you're like, okay, I actually want to kind of take steps, even if it was like small steps, as you mentioned on the front end to start, but steps to do this. Because I think with a lot of people, they might have been producing for a while to kind of get a sense like, am I good at this? But you're like, you felt so passionate about it earlier on. You're like, I want to do this. I know that this is important for me. And then you kind of figured it out after that, how to produce is what I'm getting.
Yeah, that's more or less what happened. Although I did forget a really important thing. So my sophomore year, I think it was the end. No, it was near the middle, somewhere in the middle of my sophomore year of college. I still knew like nothing about writing music. I was dabbling in production as much as I could, but one of my best friends hooked me up with his brother, his older brother, who is still probably the smartest person I've ever met. And he was going to DePaul and getting his master's in jazz, and he was a saxophone player. But he had an obsession with making pop music.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, oh, cool. Like I like producing electronic kind of poppy stuff too, because he was obsessed with Kesha's first album. Like he was blown away.
Yeah.
And so we ended up entering a remix contest together.
Oh yeah, cool.
And he really did like 90% of the work.
Uh-huh.
But funnily enough, my main contribution to that was doing vocal chops. I had
cool.
I had a little drum pad and I chopped them up on Ableton and just made something that sounded cool. And that was my first foray into the vocal chop world. But yeah, we ended up getting third.
That's fucking cool.
So yeah, I got a taste.
Yeah.
I got a taste of like what it's like to have people respond well to a song or something you've done creatively.
Right.
So after that, it's like I'm never gonna stop chasing that dragon. Like it's just too awesome.
That makes a lot of sense. Like you enter this remix competition, you get that feedback like, oh, I wanted to kind of pick this thing up. This is something I'm really interested in. And then to get that feedback, like we got third place. Like that's impressive.
Like even though I didn't play the remix was so much him, but I guess that's also why after that moment it took me a long time to really get back there on my own, because he stopped after I think another year.
Wow. See, that's crazy to me too, because he would have to have gotten that same feedback, like and he's probably thinking like, we worked on this together, but we got third place. And it's funny to see those paths, and some people stick with it and continue on. And it's cool to hear that, honestly, from your perspective, because even if you say like he maybe did the majority of the work, that still opened the door and you saw, wow, this is something that I can start dedicating some time to. And there's a real opportunity here. And then to see that you put in the work to get to where you are today, where you're doing everything solely from your production, and it's amazing, is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I'm definitely very lucky that it all worked out. I'm also really lucky because his name was Drew. He taught me a lot too, though, because he was total master of music theory, way above what I even know now, and he was always willing to teach me. So I got a much better understanding of like songwriting and how to at least structure and sort of what goes into making good songs. Like he had me analyzing, he didn't tell me to do it, but like he got me interested in analyzing pop songs and all the different things happening, and that all translated, I think, into what I'm doing now. Yeah.
Do you use those kind of tools a lot? Like just kind of pulling in all sorts of different, feedback from other artists and seeing what works. Cause with music, there's so many fundamental chord progressions that are used in lots of different songs, so you have this toolbox to kind of go off of, but then the magic is in taking those things and then translating them into something really beautiful and unique,
Yeah. Actually, sorry, just needed to move my Logic project over a bit.
No worries.
Sorry, I need to. Can you reiterate that question?
Cool. No.
I just wanted to make sure this didn't run out.
No worries, dude. No worries. I was just, I was saying, like getting that feedback from your buddy Drew, having him take you through more of the theory aspect and showing you more of the songwriting process. I guess my question is like, how did you go then about it from there, really kind of dissecting projects and trying to get a sense of like how music is made? Like, is that, I guess my question is like, what are your kind of techniques as you listen to music now for inspiration moving forward?
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, because through that, then I kind of learned to identify, because obviously you want to be creative and unique, but I mean, at the end of the day, unless you're making really avant-garde stuff, like there's certain rules and stuff,
right,
like
that everyone uses.
Yeah. And I mean, they're there for a reason. So once you start listening for that and identifying it, you just kind of start knowing what won't work and will work. So like when that comes to song structure, like how repetitive something should be, and adding to that, like how much variance to add, because repetition's necessary too. And yeah, so I definitely still do that. I think it's a really useful tool. Just, I mean, not to like copy things, but just to understand how to sort of incorporate things that work into what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I think it's very interesting because with all songs, as you mentioned, there are these underlying rules or chord progressions that, are so common, but it happens for a reason. It's because those are the chord progressions that, make people feel a certain way. If you just take random chords and you never repeat it, it's never going to turn into anything of substance.
Yeah,
So,
like you got to give people something to latch onto, right? Even yourself, like just
exactly, and that honestly, I think speaks to how amazing music is, because it can have these commonalities in the foundation in the structure of songs, but it's those little differences that will change something from being very like changing something from a basic chord structure to the next thing where it's very unique, and then you have a great idea for a song. It's those little subtleties.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are thousands upon thousands of songs that use the exact same chord progression, like even the same chord voicings and whatnot, but the production elements and most importantly the melody. I mean, the melody is what makes the song. I mean, I know he's not seen in a good light for good reason right now, but I remember reading an article about that interviewed Dr. Luke many, many years ago. And I mean, he basically one of his points was how sort of unimportant the chord progression is, like in relation to the melody. Not that chord progressions aren't important, obviously that dictates the emotion a lot, but
right.
I mean, melody is just so that's what really makes things unique.
Yeah. It's really fun. And I think especially like there's a time recently where I've gotten really interested in writing pop music, and it's so fun to look at those things, because like there's videos out there, I'm sure everyone's seen them, where they'll take 4 common chords and they will map hundreds of songs over those 4 common chords, and then you realize like, oh, this is all based on that same foundation. But you're right, it's like like for whatever it is, being human, that intricacy in the melody and the difference in the melody makes all the difference. It makes it something unique and fresh, and then it's a song that we want to listen to. Yeah,
it's really cool, but it's also frustrating too, because it's weird starting. I mean, you might build a song out starting with a chord progression, and sometimes it's frustrating. It's like, okay, we're going to use this chord progression, and then you just immediately think of some huge famous song with it.
Right.
I'm not being original, but you got to start.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just the way it works.
Right, it's the way it works. But then at the very end, once you've kind of gone through that front end where you're like, okay, this doesn't seem very original, and you push and push and make iterations, and then, a week later or 2 weeks later, whatever, you have a more polished, finished idea for a song, you look back and you're like, oh, the reason why you're sticking with this is because it becomes unique after that.
Exactly. I mean, there's no better feeling when you finally can step back and be like, wow, this is totally like my song now. This sounds like I made it.
Right, man. And just listening to your music, it is amazing because have written some beautiful melodic songs. I mean, truly, like,
Thank you.
absolutely, man. The one we were talking about before we started recording, Anywhere, is just, I think, melodically amazing, and it's catchy and it sticks, and it's something that I found myself listening to a lot. So that
And I have to give because Blonde Maze not only sang, but she also helped produce, and I got to give her credit because that little synth hook, she wrote that, and obviously the vocals were her. So
yeah,
she deserves just as much credit for that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, but that's really cool too, because then you can find through these collaborative experiences too that you come together and something comes out that you may not have been able to make alone, she may not have been able to make alone, but together you make something awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's actually kind of exactly how it worked, because we had the drop, and we didn't know, but eventually decided it needed some kind of hook to latch onto there. Mm-hmm. And she sent me this, I don't know, sort of long phrase of ideas, like played out on a piano or some kind of synth or something. And that hook was in there, but it was just this like tiny 4-second segment out of this 30-second one. And I heard that. I'm like, we're going to use that.
Yeah.
So
that's the importance too, being able to pick out those little things, and it clicks, and you're like, okay, you hear something, you can kind of see where it's going to go. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it wouldn't have been that way without either of us being involved. So
yeah, it's so cool, man. It's so cool to hear about that process and hear about what it's like to start and then kind of build this whole like hearing that whole Genesis story, if you will. I mean, speaking about, you know, justice and such. But anyways,
yeah, I know. I got that.
But one thing I thought was just really funny, and I mean, we can touch on as much as you want, but you're mentioning that before we started recording that you feel like you've seen these guys throughout your career, guys and girls, that when you started chatting with them or maybe potentially working with them or whatever, you saw them when they were much smaller, and it's changed over time. You have these crazy stories.
Yeah. The first instance of that was actually with Petit Biscuit. I just released Cruise, which was my first release through Seeking Blue.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my first and only, which is Mr. Suicide Cheap's label. And he sent me a message on SoundCloud, and this was like right after he released Sunset Lover. So, I mean, it had, I think it maybe had somewhere over 100,000 plays on SoundCloud, which, I mean, at the time is obviously a lot.
Yeah. But now,
looking back now, it's laughable. But yeah, and so I was blown away that he was complimenting me on my song, and so I talked to a guy at Mr. Suicide Cheap, and I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, I kind of want to ask this dude if he wants to make a song, and but I told him I was really nervous because he still had like 30,000 SoundCloud followers and stuff, so he was much bigger than me. And he's like, dude, just ask. He's 15, and he's like 9 years younger than me at the time. And yeah, so that eased my nerves a little bit. But,
yeah.
And he was super nice. Like, nothing ever happened with it, but he responded and was really welcoming, and we talked a bit more. But
yeah. It is funny when you come across those people that are young and just so driven and motivated and talented at a young. I mean, because I'm, you know, we're pretty close in age. I'm 30, you know, and I talk with guys who are 10 years younger than me and just so damn talented. And it's funny. It makes me think about what I was doing when I was 20, and I was not there dedicated working on any craft at that time. It's really,
I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I do take some solace in the fact that, because I think if I started at that age or even earlier, because I mean, if he was blowing up at 15, he had to have started
right
a year or two earlier at least. And I think if I started at that age, I would have quit long before I developed into anything, and I wouldn't have started again.
Right.
So I think waiting until I was older, I mean, obviously it wasn't intentional, but starting when I was older kind of helped me know that it was something I would actually stick with and wanted to solidify into this real career, or try to.
Yep. I think about that kind of stuff a lot. Like, if like it's almost like now, if things seem to go in my direction, it's almost like the universe is opening some doors, and it's like, hey, go and do this and work hard because I'm ready to work hard. But if I had those same opportunities 10 years ago, it wouldn't happen, because I was such a fuck. Even if I had opportunity, I wouldn't know what to do with it. It's like I had to go through all that stuff, learn what it even means to work on something. That didn't even come to like my, maybe I was 25 or 26,
I'm right there with you. Like,
yeah.
I mean, obviously getting your foot in the door at first is hard, like getting that first sort of recognition, but then capitalizing on the opportunities that come from that is insanely important. Because, I mean, getting your foot in the door doesn't matter if you can't take advantage of it. And if you're not ready to take advantage of it, it's really easy to just let that,
totally,
like, all those opportunities slip away.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of did that a few times.
Yeah. And I think also, as you go through times in your life where you're, for myself at least, like, kind of screwing things up and getting all this feedback and trying things and failing at things and then trying, when things seem to click a little bit, you really understand it, because you kind of failed at other things in the past. You're like, oh, this is something that I can actually work on, because it's and that kind of feedback's really important. And I think for myself, it took all that time in my past fucking up and for now, that when things open up a little bit, I can see it as I can see the potential there a little bit more easily.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. It is really interesting, and this whole music thing is so. The whole music world is so interesting. Just to hear that story that, chatting with Petit Biscuit, he's a younger dude. That whole story must be incredible. But then to be able to chat with people like this, like you and I are chatting about music, to be able to communicate with him over SoundCloud or Instagram or whatever it was, is so cool, because you start learning about everyone in this small little world, and you get to know people, you start learning about their path, and then I don't know, I love that fact that there's this really awesome community around the electronic music, around people making music, and everyone is so supportive of one another. People are so kind when you reach out. Yeah,
no, I mean, it's really nice. I mean, because everyone, I mean, obviously it's different if you are a legitimate overnight success, but that's extremely rare. But I think everyone's kind of aware of how, I mean, everyone's aware that everyone else is grinding just as hard. I mean, if they're near you, they've probably spent just as much time working and have gone through a lot of the same troubles and frustration that you've gone through.
Yeah.
So.
That's probably a lot of it, is understand, like, having that sympathy, because there's so much frustration. There's a lot,
Yeah, it can be a long and sometimes a very shitty road. So
yeah.
It's worth it, but yeah, it can be rough.
So what's it been like? I mean, kind of trying to put myself in your shoes, having this last really 10 years dedicated to music, or learning about music, starting to produce, and then the last couple years have just been incredible in terms of traction with the EP. It just seems like we were talking about this before, and you're like, everyone I see around me is blowing up, but I'm like, dude, you're blowing up. Like, I looked at your Spotify, you're blowing up, bro.
I know. Honestly, that's one of my biggest issues. I have a lot of problems with, like, negatively comparing myself to people. So
yeah,
that's honestly why I try and limit how much I look at social media and stuff.
Yeah.
I love, everyone I know is fantastic, and I want them all to do extremely well, but it just stresses me out. So Instagram, I basically just post stuff, and yeah. Instagram
can be a bitch that way, because you're right. You see everyone's best life,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's, So I like a year and a half ago or so, I realized that was a big source of anxiety for me. So I finally cut that out, and I've been much happier since.
It's funny. I was watching a documentary the other night about, I think it was through Vice, and it was talking about this uptick in depression with very young kids, like adolescents, early teens and adolescents, and a lot of it is due to social media. And what therapists will say, the first thing they'll say is when someone is showing signs of depression, or early in that time in their life, they'll say, cut out social media. and immediately there's an uptick. Like, and I found it with myself too. Like, I've had days where I will be looking at how the podcast is doing. I'll be thinking like, okay, is it gonna, like, how are the downloads gonna be today or whatever? And I notice I'll check it frequently, and it takes a toll on me. Like, I'll have a ton of anxiety, and I can get in a low place, and I'll just stop doing it. I feel better.
Yeah, I know. Like, because when you mentioned like my monthly listeners and stuff, I don't know what they are because I purposely don't look.
That's cool. Yeah.
Right after a release, I'll check like religiously for like a week straight.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, okay, this is unhealthy now, and I just stop looking.
Yeah.
I stop checking. I don't look at song plays because for two reasons. One, if I look again, then I'll feel more compelled to start checking. But the main thing being, it's just, I mean, it just stresses me out. I mean, there's no point. It doesn't help anything. Obviously, it's nice to see if it's still going up, but you're always going to reach a point where it starts going back down. And
right.
I mean, unless you have, I don't know, the mental fortitude to really just not care, which I don't have. It's going to start affecting you to some degree.
I think it affects everyone, man, because it's a weird world, and my guess is too. I think it's really cool you do that, because if you take the time to say like, I'm cutting this out, I don't want to immerse myself in this looking at the how things are tracking, how things are playing, how things are streaming and such so frequently. My guess is then when you start working on music, you're making the music more for yourself. You're not making the music because I put in my perspective, if I was in that same scenario, if I got really immersed in how a song is doing, and say it's doing well, I'd be like, okay, I got to go make a song that's just like this last one,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I think part of it comes from just me being more experienced, but I've been so much more prolific and been making a lot more music that I like, and it's all just been coming so much easier to me over this last year. And it's partly because of not gauging what I should make based off of numbers. I mean, it's also because I'm really lucky with my label situation, like Lowly Palace and Chill Nation, because they're totally on board with me just doing me, like my chill indie stuff that I like, and they're totally supportive of it. And yeah, I mean, like Sirius Chill too, like Sirius XM, I guess. They've been totally on board with just the stuff that I want to make, like Golden Hour and Follow Me and stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been really lucky in that sense too, because I mean, I would feel different if a label was saying maybe kind of like lean more towards that, but it's instead it's like, hey, like maybe you could try a song in your style, but just like a little kind of like this, like I've been told, or I think it was like a year ago, one of my friends mentioned maybe just trying to do some more housey stuff, basically like what I was doing with like Her and Always, but just quicker. And at first I was like, and then I tried it out and I loved it, and it was a blast. And I don't know, I think I have a couple songs at this point I haven't released yet, but
cool.
So
it does come down to that. So I think about that stuff a lot. Like when you get that feedback from someone, like maybe try something a little bit like this. I found with myself, there'll be times where if I try and work on, if I'm proactively thinking like, ooh, I want to make something in this genre, I personally will make shit,
Yeah.
And it's almost like removing that, all that inhibition and I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. Like when you cut out the social media, you're just making music for yourself. You're kind of removing that inhibition a bit. And I think that's when the best music comes from a producer, because you're really having your unique voice then come through the music. And that's something only you can do, And that's what people gravitate to. Then they're like, okay, I go to Attom because he makes this specific sound that's him. And then that's what people catch on to.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess pardon my language, but that kind of like fucked me early on. Even though I was having success and stuff, I still didn't know what kind of music I wanted to make. Because I mean, going back to what you mentioned, how like when you think to yourself you want to make something in a specific genre, like it's the same case with me. It's most of the time it's just bad. And so because I released Glow, which was the first reason I ever started getting any attention. And I've come to terms with it, but I still feel weird about that song. I mean, I like it. I'm really happy about it. I will forever be in debt to that song for what it did to me, but I could just never, I didn't want to make more music like that. So then I just, for the next, I don't know, 2 years after that, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so like there was Better, which is very much a pop song. And then the year after that, I did a bunch of remixes for like Bishop Briggs, Charlie Puth, Jai Wolf, Cheat Codes even, and they were all like wildly different. And like honestly, like it was cool because a lot of them did well. Like I think only one of those has under 1 million plays right now. But it didn't really help me grow at all. Like all it really did was up my remix fee because I could get plays on remixes, but I wasn't growing as an artist or anything and sort of establishing myself because I was just producing cool songs. I don't know the best way to phrase it, but I think you know what I'm getting at.
No,
like I didn't really know what I wanted to do as an artist yet. And I kind of reflected, and I think it was hard for people to really get into what I was doing.
Well, my guess is like once you kind of have this good internal gauge of if you're making music for exterior reasons or for yourself. And my guess is that when you find you're really making music true to yourself, that's probably the most fulfilling when you're making music. Because then it's like it when you get feedback from people following that, it probably means a lot more, I would guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it was great seeing all those remixes and stuff get a lot of plays, and I don't know, but it just, I mean, not to sidetrack too far, but
no.
A lot of it stemmed actually because with working with Drew when I first started, my friend, and the whole pop music thing, up until I think I released Glow, like I only wanted to produce music for other people. Like that's the only reason I was entering remix contests was to hopefully get some contacts.
Oh, cool. That's kind of cool. So you started when you kind of went into it at that stage wanting to be like a ghost producer, like totally.
Yeah, I didn't want to be an artist. I just wanted to produce pop music for people.
Yeah.
And so it was so when I released Glow, and shit started popping off, because I mean that song, I released it because like two of my friends told me to, by the way. I didn't think anyone would like it. Damn,
that's sick.
I had like 30 SoundCloud followers.
Wow.
And I didn't think it was very good, but they're like, no, you have to finish it and release it.
So you release it. How did that process go? Because like there's people out there listening who are in that same boat. Like they have 30 SoundCloud followers. They have a hand, and they have a track. Like what did you do? Did you put it out? Did you push it out to like some of the channels like Chill Nation or anything like that? Like how did it get picked up initially, or did you put it on SoundCloud and it started to gain traction? So
it's kind of a little bit of both. So because the specific time frame was in June and July is when I won those remix contests. That's when those were announced. And after I won the Chromeo one, this, I don't know the right word for it, but this sort of promotional SoundCloud channel sent me a message. And we're like, hey, we love this remix. If you have any other songs in the future, we'd love to post it on our channel. And I mean, at the time I was freaking out because they had like 2,100 followers.
Yeah.
And when I won those remixes, I had 3. So I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And
it.
So I made Glow, and after that my friends told me to post it. I didn't even message the promotional channel because I really didn't think anyone would like it. So I posted it on my SoundCloud, just didn't do anything. Dude. And then that guy heard it, so he posted it on his page with like 2,100 followers. And then like 2 weeks later, this guy he's still probably my best friend in the music industry now, but he was an A&R assistant in Atlantic. He found it and had like 1,000 plays, but he made something. And yeah, so he ended up sending me an email. And I didn't believe it was real. I'm not even kidding. Because when I won the Parade of Lights contest, they were totally wonderful to me. And like were talking to me more and exchanged phone numbers. And they were just like, we really think you could do something. And so I texted the lead singer. And I'm like, do you know this guy by chance? Like, I think this is a fake email. He's from Atlantic. And yeah, and he checked, and he had a few mutual friends with him on Facebook. So okay. So I responded to him, and we got on the phone. And yeah, so we just talked about some stuff, and I even told him then, I'm like, yeah, I just want to produce music for other people.
Yeah.
But then like 2 weeks after that, Mr. Suicide Sheep sent me an email, and and at the time his channel, because I mean it was amazing getting hit up by the Atlantic guy, but that wasn't doing anything to my track. Like they weren't at the time, they weren't going to sign it or anything. So when Mr. Suicide Sheep hit me up, it was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, well, how did you even hear about me? And I'm still not entirely sure, but I think it's because my friend posted it on his Facebook wall and was like, please check this out.
Wow.
And then he sent me an email and was like, hey, can I post this? It's like, yeah. You can.
For sure. Yeah.
So then I checked his channel every afternoon for like 3 weeks straight. And on the third week, I think it was 3 weeks, I got to the point where it's like, I don't think he's actually going to do it. And I got really sad. And then it finally happened. And then shit just kind of got insane.
Yeah.
Because then it got picked up by SiriusXM. It was on their like top 10 YouTube trending songs.
Lord. Right.
That the Chainsmokers were announcing. Although I was always salty because they announced like 8 out of 10 songs personally, but didn't announce mine.
No.
It's like I was so close.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, Big Beat signed it, which is Atlantic's like EDM label. And yeah, so the whole Discovery thing was kind of, I don't know. As you can hear, it's this really convoluted thing that wasn't entirely planned.
Right.
And yeah.
Dude, that I think for the podcast is the craziest like breakout story I've ever heard, dude. That's so, and it's so awesome in a sense because it's so organic. Like you weren't like analyzing different kind of tracks. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna, build out this track that mimics this sound, and I'm gonna try and get here, and I'm gonna get on this play. Like it was totally just you were in it to do the remixes. You wanted to kind of produce behind the scenes, and you didn't even really want to release this track, and people are coming to you. That must be that's when you know, like, okay, this is a thing. When you're getting that sort of attention, and you're not even pushing it.
Yeah, no, that's because after all that happened, it was like, okay, I'm really doing this.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, there was a big old failure before that. Not a failure, but to at least level things out, because it wasn't all just like sunshine and rainbows for me. Because even after I won those remix contests, I sent out my remixes to various channels. Suicide Sheep actually turned one down first. And these other channels turned them down. And then, do you know who Goldroom is? He does kind of like disco-y stuff. He's pretty big, and he was big at the time. And in Parade of Lights' tweet about me winning their contest, they tweeted at me and said I sounded kind of like Goldroom. And I guess Goldroom must have saw that, because he ended up being, I think he was my 4th SoundCloud follower. And he had like 88,000 at the time.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
I think I still have a screenshot of it on my phone.
That's a great screenshot. That's so sick.
But no, so we ended up doing like a pre-remix. So we released the song stems to his song before it came out.
Oh, okay.
And he wanted to hear remixes. So I did it. I was like, I have to do this because he's following me. Maybe like we can talk. And so I did the remix, and I don't know, it was like a couple weeks later, I never heard anything, and I was really bummed because I didn't think it was that bad. And then I saw he also wasn't following me on SoundCloud anymore.
Oh no.
Which I'm not saying in a bad way. Like,
right. Yeah, I know.
But yeah, so But then I looked and I forgot I set up a filter in my Gmail to like filter stuff from Facebook because they were just spamming my new account.
Yeah.
And Goldroom had a Facebook link in his email signature. And he sent me an email saying he like really liked it and wanted me to send it to him so he could play it. And I was like, I think I saw it like 30 days later. And I responded to it and never heard back.
Yeah.
And,
dude, but like it's funny you say that because there's so much of that shit happens, you know? There's so many obstacles and things always get fucked up, but you know, along the way you just kept doing it, you know, like that I think is so important. And you go back to your buddy who started that first remix competition with you, and you know, you guys got this feedback where like you got third place together, but then he kind of just stopped after a year. Like you kept going, you kept releasing stuff, you kept working on it as your own passion project, and that's so cool. I just love to hear those stories. And I mean, I'm being dead serious. I feel like this has got to be the coolest, like blow up track, like kind of, process to getting. It's so bizarre,
it's
but
really
it's
weird.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, I totally agree with you because I mean, it's what I tell. Sometimes I'll have friends be like, man, I wish I was good at making music. And it's like, I'm not. I tell everyone the same thing. It's like, I wasn't inherently good at making music. Mm-hmm. I guess I was, if I had to give myself any credit, I was rhythmically inclined. Like I was always pretty good at playing the drums, but I'm also fortunate to be like pretty coordinated and stuff. But I didn't have some huge knack for melody or songwriting. And the only reason I'm in my current position is because I was just too stubborn to stop.
Yeah. Like
you could be just as good as making music as me, and I mean it'll just take you a really long time. It took me for fucking ever. Right.
It's that it's not overnight. It's years and years and years of developing this craft, and you know, it's funny because I even before starting this podcast, I've just been obsessed with those stories where you'll kind of see behind the scenes of how someone successful did it, and it's always just they were too stubborn to stop. You know, they just kept working. You know, you just don't really accept that option of, okay, I got enough negative feedback, I'm just gonna quit. You know, you take all that in and then you reassess and you kind of maybe move in a different way about how you're gonna process that and how you're gonna take the next step forward. But that's it. You just keep working on it. And I mean, I had to take a lot of I haven't in the past few years, but I mean, before anything started working out, like I still took a couple 1-2 month breaks where it was just like too depressing. Like I just had to step away because it was really bumming me out, but I always came crawling back. Yeah, that's it, man. And, you know, and that's one reason why I love doing these episodes, because people who especially are starting out get to see your trajectory, and that may not be out there or very easy, you know, to get access to or whatnot. And then I think for those people out there starting or experiencing those same things while they're working on music, they're like, oh, you know, Attom, I love his music, and he had the same fucking letdowns that I'm having. Yeah, you know, because that's the kind of stuff that would get me so stuck, kind of keep me going when I'd learn about those kind of things from other people I would look up to, you know?
Yeah, well, and especially because, I mean, it does seem like a lot of people, even the people who were overnight successes, where it looks like their first song they ever released was huge. Like, most of the time that's not the case, but it's so easy to perceive it that way.
Right.
Like, Marshmello's the perfect example. He was someone before Marshmello.
Right. Yeah, he had, totally different music before Marshmello.
.com, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he put in time, too, and it didn't work out as well as he wanted, and...
Right.
He just reworked things.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy for that reason, and I think those kind of stories and conversations are important now, because as you mentioned earlier, getting on Instagram, everyone sees the best of the best. You know, you look at someone's profile and you think oh, this is the perfect life. You know, look at all these things happening, blah blah blah, and you just get this really, curated view of what's going on.
Yeah, that's that's why my Instagram's such a bummer, because I always joke no one wants to see me sitting at a desk every day. I don't do much exciting things, and it's not like I'm playing a bunch of shows.
Yeah. Do you just is your day to day just like wake up, start producing? Is that how it's going right now? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I don't wake up and instantly get into it, but yeah, I mean, I treat it like a real job. Like I wake up, have breakfast, maybe watch like 20 minutes of Netflix or something, and respond to emails, and then yeah, I'll just
start working.
I'll try and work. Some days are better than others, but
right. Yeah. That's another thing too. Like I've found where, so I'm working the 8 to 5 right now, and there'll be days where I'll take a day off and I'm like, I'm just gonna work on music. And then if I put that pressure on myself, I'm like, and then that pressure is gonna, then I'm not gonna make anything. It's gonna be horrible. Yeah. But so some days are I'm guessing like a miss. You're just nothing's clicking. Then some days it's just idea.
It is, but I will sit at my desk every day. Like, I think a big thing that helped me was like, even before, I don't know, I think it was like 6 months before things started to take off, and I still do it. I mean, I don't want to suck all the fun out of it, but I treat it like a job, and I make myself at least sit at my desk and try, like, give myself the opportunity to work, like, and just that routine of forcing myself into it, whether it's 10 to 6 or 8 to 3, or just sitting at my desk for a set number of hours and trying to make stuff. Yeah. And I think that is it's been a big help for me, because I don't think anyone who does it professionally just makes music when they want to. Right.
Yeah. There's it's funny, this came up a few episodes back. There's an author, Stephen Pressfield. He has this book called The War of Art. Have you heard of that by chance? Or him as an author?
I don't think so. I'm not a very well-read individual. So
I'm not either. I'm not really. I have like a few, but this was one of them. But he promotes that same idea. It's very interesting for that fact. It's a book for creative people or for artists that are working on a craft and trying to produce something, and he promotes that same idea of just sitting down and putting in set amount of time where you're going to work on this. And you almost just force yourself to do it and see what comes out, rather than the idea of, okay, I'm going to make music when it seems like inspiration strikes. Then you're going to be subject to all these different things going on in your life, and like, do I feel like I can make music right now, or do I feel like I can't? It's just having that regimented process of sitting down, which really I think leads to a more creative process. You just sit yourself down, you have to do it, and then that's going to lead to more tracks, more whatever, more releases, etc. Yeah.
Well, I mean, because this dude on Netflix, there was a documentary about creativity, I think, 2 years ago or something, and there was this graphic designer artist guy, and he put it better than I ever could. I can't remember the exact quote, but I mean, it's more or less just because he does the same thing. He'd work from like 8 to 5 or something, and every day wouldn't necessarily go well, but you need to put yourself, like, because you might not get that idea that like sparks into a full song or a full painting or something, but you need to put yourself in the position to take advantage of that when it happens, or at least to nudge it into like giving it better odds of happening. Yep. So that's what I continue to follow. But I mean, don't get me wrong though, like there's nothing wrong with making art when you want to, just because it makes it a lot more fun, and it's like perfect if it's a hobby. Right. Because I mean, I'll be the first to admit I don't always have a blast making music, but this is what I decided to try and do for a living. So I can't just work like 3 hours twice a week. Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, and I think that's such an important thing to hear, because it's not always going to be fun. As you mentioned, like there are times when it sucks, but you're treating it like that's when someone goes from being amateur to professional, when you have times where, okay, I'm not in the mood to make music, or a ton of things are going on, but you still do it, and you make sure you go about that process, and that's, I think from my perspective, then when you have the highs of something clicking, or you get some feedback from someone about a release or something, it makes the highs that much better. When you have these times, you're like, okay, this fucking sucks. Absolutely. If you have to spend 50 hours of going through shit ideas to get to that one idea that finally turns into a great song, like, and you make that whole song in like 2 days. There's like no better feeling in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, those
Yeah.
50 hours are awful, don't get me wrong, but because then you're just sitting there like, ugh.
Yeah.
But I agree. The payoff feels a lot more rewarding.
100%, man. That's what it's all about. And yeah, it's just it's interesting. It's interesting for sure. And I I talk about a lot of these things. It's almost transitioned more. It's sad and awesome because since the podcast is becoming more of a thing, I have less time to work on music, but I love doing this podcast. So there's a lot of times when I'm doing fucking edits, and I hate doing edits, or like the intro for a podcast, which I hate doing, and I'm just like, but then the times where I have these awesome conversations and we're like in the middle of it and we're going really deep, and then that's what it all, then it all balances out. It's
Yeah.
I think that's a really matured thing that I had to come to as well, because in the past, if I picked something up that I was interested in, especially when I was a lot younger, if I had times where I wasn't enjoying it, I'd just drop it. Like I'd be like, oh, I'm not enjoying it. This isn't what I should be doing. But no, that's part of the whole thing. You have times where it sucks, you keep going, and times when it's great.
Yeah, and it's just it's so hard with things you don't have to do.
Mhm.
Like, because with a normal job, like if you don't go to work, that's going to be bad. Like
Right.
you're either gonna
It's-
get
yeah.
fired, you're gonna get some type of reprimand. I don't know, but
Yeah.
like with certain things like this, like if I woke up and was like, I don't want to do anything, I wouldn't have to.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the routine is so important, because even if I wake up feeling like that, I feel like a big bag of shit if I don't
Right.
even attempt to. Like, it's not even by choice. Like, I get anxious if I'm not
Yep.
spending at least part of my day at my desk trying.
Right.
Because it's just kind of hardwired into my daily function now.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
dude.
Yeah, sorry.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I mean,
No, I was just gonna say that that's what it makes it a lot easier to deal with the shittier parts of the whole gig.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who, just having this conversation, I can tell that you are really hardworking, and I think a lot of people that find this path are the same way, and also really in this feedback loop. And I find myself in it at times too, where if something's not clicking, I get anxiety. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to go do something. I got to like make this go here, and that it's like a blessing and a curse, because it'll push you to keep going, and then you get that anxiety. You're like, okay, I got to go sit down and work on music. But it's a curse in that sense too, because you got this kind of underlying push behind you to move forward. And I think a lot of successful people and creative people have that.
Yeah, it's all like, I'm not claiming I have anything, but like, yeah, I know what you mean, and it's great and it's awful, because I have trouble not, because I don't even think I'm that hard of a worker. I know there are people who, I don't know, can really just be a laser beam all day long, but
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
It's
a weird thing. I wish I could feel more comfortable taking time off.
right.
Because even if it's like a scheduled vacation, like 6 months, like if it's 3 days long, I'm still gonna feel weird.
yeah.
It's like, but the reason it sort of, I don't know, it is good as well is because that anxiety kind of pushes songs out of me a lot.
That's what it is.
Like,
Yeah.
Her made that because I hadn't released music in a while and I was just panicking. I made it in like 2 days. I didn't think anyone was gonna like that too.
Uh-huh.
And that song totally changed my life. And then I was gonna do the same thing with Golden Hour, and Stay.
Mm-hmm.
I made that because there was gonna be a big release gap, and I was panicking.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think anyone was gonna like it, and that's been on Sirius Radio for the last 3 years. And then Golden Hour was the same thing.
Yeah.
I hadn't released a song in like 3 months, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm failing as like an artist and a business person. I have to do something. So I made Golden Hour super quick, and I released it myself. Like I didn't tell anyone really.
Uh-huh.
And just put it on SoundCloud and my Spotify through DistroKid. And then I got hit up by Lowly and Chill Nation. They're like, hey, like, what's up with that song?
Yeah. That's
like,
so funny. You're just like self-releasing songs at this point. Like
I know.
And
like you'd think I would have learned my lesson by that point, but I'm so filled with doubt like so much of the time that I can't help it. I'm like, no one will like this. I'm just gonna.
Dude.
I mean, I know it's not a bad song, but I don't think any of the labels will want it, so I'll just put it out.
Right, but it's funny you mentioned that because my thought is like is this, right? So you may start with an idea, right? And let's just say this idea is a 4, right? And you're not gonna go anywhere with it. And then you start another thing, and it starts developing. It's like you think it's a 7, right? For someone else, that might be an 11, you know. But
I know.
you keep going. You're like, wait, no, and then you're reiterating, and then suddenly, okay, you get something where you're like, okay, this is an 8, but no label's gonna want to pick it up, and I'm gonna put it up myself. But in reality, it's like a 12 or a 13, you know. So that I think that mindset to be kind of really, you know, objective and almost to a sense where you're underwhelming or you know, what's the word, like, you know, giving it a lesser value than it really deserves, kind of puts you into the space where you're kind of pushing yourself to make better and better music.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I in the past, I mean, I probably still do a bit, but I do it to like a detrimental degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like as you've probably heard, like her and Glow, both. Those are both songs that I released because friends told me to.
Yeah.
So like
that's crazy. Yeah.
I honestly owe a lot.
That's cool.
To the very like few people whose sort of opinion and like taste. Like I trust them to be objective, even if it's not the style they like. I know they'll kind of be able to tell me if it's good or bad.
Right.
I've been really lucky to have like two really close people like that ever since I released Glow, actually. And yeah, without them, things would probably be different for me. Like they've always been my barometer.
That's so cool, man. That's really, really cool. Cause, yeah, I mean, I've seen that. Like for one example, just kind of touching in on that having that process where you're working on something and you just don't think it's that good and you keep reiterating. I remember I was watching a Twitch stream with Deadmau5 and he was working on Monophobia that came out like, I don't know, a year and a half ago now or something like that. And I remember I'd be watching the stream and he would be working on a track and I was like, this is sick. Like to me, it's a 10, right? And he would hate it. And then he would go and reiterate things and it would get better. But I would have stopped right there. You know,
because you don't think it can get better.
Right. But he goes through a bunch of iterative processes and then the end result is amazing, but someone may have stopped, you know, way back and not have pushed it into what it is. And I'm getting that same idea from you. You're kind of like maybe having this process where you're maybe not thinking it's so good, so you push it, and you're just releasing amazing tracks, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, I know I've also in the past, I mean, they weren't released in this form, but I've been so unsatisfied that I'll either just like change it into shittiness or I'll totally forget about a song. Like I won't work on it anymore. I'll forget about it even if it's good. Like I won't even send it to anyone. I'll just push it back and it'll never see the light of day. Like that actually happened. Like because I'm working on an album and the intro song for it it's not the exact same, but it's built off of this idea I made like 3 years ago that I thought was just garbage, but I found an old bounce of it like 6 months ago. I was like, whoa. Yeah. This is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes revisiting those things from a while, you kind of get a different perspective. It's like a clean slate and you can see it a little bit more for what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I've done that with anything else though, because I'm really bad about coming back to things. If it's not done in like a week or so, I'm usually
just on to the next thing.
Yeah, I'm usually over it. Yeah. The only time I've ever waited a really long time is if the whole track is basically done besides like vocals or something. Because like I panic made Stay in like, I don't know, a couple days, but I didn't actually do the vocal chops for it. I think until a couple of weeks later, because nothing was working, and
Yeah.
yeah. But eventually it just worked out. And the same thing with Always. Actually, I didn't make the vocal chops for that until a year later.
Oh wow! Do you
Yeah.
when you say working on some of those tracks and having this kind of like panic process, and like jumping in, do you find that pressure does push you in a direction where you can kind of be more creative and then it kind of acts to your advantage a bit?
I actually think about that a lot. Like I always wonder if just because I have made those tracks sort of under this anxious load that maybe that's beneficial for my creativity, but I've also made a lot of songs that I personally like that were made in a very content and chill mindset. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know I at least know that I can pull stuff off with tight deadlines, but I don't think it's any better for me necessarily.
Right. It is cool because if you ever do go that route, I mean, you may not want to now, but if you ever went that route where you were doing ghost producing, even while you're producing your own music, having that ability to work under a deadline, I would imagine would be super, super useful.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've already had to do it a lot with remixes. Like,
that makes sense.
That one year I banged out a lot. I was given a few, and it's like, you have 1 week.
God.
Like, I think I had less than a week for my Bishop Briggs remix. And that one, I really pulled that one out of my ass. Like, I really like that remix too. It goes hard, but it doesn't sound anything like me. But yeah, there were a couple where it's like, I really like this and you're a big artist and I want to do it, but I don't know if I can actually make that happen. But I also don't like working late nights, which is why those hard deadlines are. So
you find in the day is more.
I try to just treat it like a really normal thing. I'll work from like, I think lately it's been like 10:30 to 6:30 or 7, obviously with lunch. And I mean, I'm not just totally working that whole time, and then after that, I just shut it down unless I have to finish something.
Yeah. That's good to have times where you're on and then you shut it down, because having that off switch, I think, is really important, because I mean, you see it with just working and, in general, whatever capacity it is, people that take their work home, it adds so much stress, and being able to just turn it off and be like, all right, this is when I work till I'm done, I'll pick it back up tomorrow, is really important.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it took me a little while to figure that out, because I don't know, I love making music and it makes me very happy, but it took me quite a while to figure out that it can't be the primary source of my happiness. Like,
right.
I need to have a separation and enjoy the other aspects of my life.
Yep.
And once I kind of realized that, and I'm still not the best about it, but once I realized that, I actually became a lot happier.
Yeah. So I think about that because now that I've focused almost all my effort into this, if I'm basing my happiness on how this is going, it is really unhealthy. Like, I was thinking about that today. Like, I have so many things that I am so thankful for, with a lot of things outside my life. And, when you kind of refocus and kind of rebalance that, it almost makes then when I think about the enjoyment I get from the podcast, it makes it, for whatever reason, this sounds stupid, but almost more enjoyable. I don't know, like, it's on the side now, and I'm like, oh, I love this thing I'm doing over here, but I have all these other things too. I don't know.
No, I completely agree, because it's sort of this, because it's not this like teeter-totter that's determining your actual, like, how much you're actually enjoying life. Like, it's just this bonus kind of.
Right. And then you can look at it and be like, oh, it's fucking cool what I'm doing.
This sucks, but like, at least I can go do this stuff afterwards with whoever, or with, so.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it. And just being, I think this has just been an awesome conversation, because seeing that balance is so, so important. And especially guys starting out, myself included, and I think a lot of people that will listen to this episode, balancing it in a sense where it's not the end all be all, especially like where you're piecing everything for your happiness, and treating on a regimented schedule and all these things, I think they allow for a more well-balanced life. And then when things do work, when things click through the hard work, it just, for whatever reason, I think it's just more, I don't know, real or more genuine.
Yeah. And I mean, there are days where like I will just pull, like if I'm really into some new idea, like I can work for like 12 hours or like, but that romanticized like view of this slaving artist who pulls all-nighters and is just totally like sleep deprived and stuff. I don't think that's even remotely sustainable. Like, and I mean, you hear about a lot of people who, like even musicians and stuff, like they're huge, but they are really unhappy. But so that's, I don't think you can enjoy your success if you're not happy in sort of other areas of your life. Like,
right. It's that balance for sure, because, I'm working in the kind of corporate world, and you see it so much where people will put things on a pedestal, like, oh, if I get here, I'll be so happy because I've done this, this, and this. But that mindset of placing everything into something, if I get here, I'm going to be really happy, is super fleeting. There's nothing to that. So having that mindset early on that you're expressing, where it's like more based on balance, and that then as things progress, as doors open and you have more success, then it's going to be balanced too. It's not just like going to just be this crazy tumultuous process, Yeah.
Like I'm so much more stable because I used to do that. I used to be like at the very start, I was like, if I hit 500 overall plays on SoundCloud,
right?
And I don't mean this in a bad way. Like we've all been there. Like if anyone's not at that point, like
yeah.
I don't mean it in a bad way, but I guess just relatively speaking now, looking back, 500 isn't that much. And I used to be like, if I could hit 500, I'll be so happy. Like that'll be the greatest thing ever. Then it was 1,000.
Yep.
Then it was 10,000.
Yep.
Then it was 100,000, and it just kept getting less exciting and more depressing every time it passed.
Right.
And then I had to stop doing it. Like, because it will never be enough. Even when my Charlie Puth remix hit 10 million plays on Spotify, I was like, now I could say like 50 million or something, and it's not permanent. So
yeah. No, I think that's it. I think it's really, really, really important that you say that, and for people listening, I mean, and then for your like having that understanding at this point in your career, because I can look now and think about people out there who are really famous, and it's not everyone by any means, but you can kind of pick up on artists who have that mentality. You can kind of see, I'm trying to think of like who would be a good example. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but not even anyone necessarily in electronic music, but people who are chasing material goods and things like that. Like, oh, if I could perform on this stage or whatever, it's so fleeting. Like there's no cap. You'll never get there where it's like, oh, I did it. Okay, I feel good now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's you can be extremely successful and still just, I mean, you can be depressed. It's not like Kristen Bell, like she's super open about her use of, or that she takes, not use. She takes antidepressants and struggle with depression and stuff. And she's one of the biggest superstars on the planet. And it's like, she obviously doesn't have to worry about money or anything. And has a lot of people giving her lots of compliments every day on social media and whatnot. But it's, I mean, it matters, but it's not.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always think about this because there's been lots of times in my life where I'll do this, where I'm like, oh, if I could be over here, I'd be happy, but I look at exactly what I have at that moment and try and just realize, like, there are people who are in poverty around the world and they would be so happy where I am. So it's like it's all relative, so it's like, why am I having these thoughts? If I can pause for a second and then think like, well, am I fulfilled? Am I happy? Am I unhappy? What's going on? It's not that I'm in a bad position by any means, because I'm very fortunate. So it comes down to that. It comes down to that chase is very interesting. But then at the same point, as a musician, treating this as a career, there are those aspirations too. So you have to balance it. And and I just think it's been really, it's just been amazing to hear your perspective, man. Because I go into these. We haven't really chatted at all before this, and I really had, I wasn't, who knows what to expect.
Yeah, I didn't expect this to get so like,
no,
I don't know, psychological.
I like it. Yeah. I think for whatever reason, I end up bringing up these topics. And I don't know. This is the kind of stuff that really interests me because I found when I was really young, I wanted to, and this is like 6th grade, like I loved Blink-182 and I wanted to be in a band like Blink-182 and I didn't treat it like a regimented process at all or a discipline. I just thought that they were geniuses and they wrote amazing music. So now having this opportunity to chat with people who have done amazing things and written amazing music, and I see like, oh, wait. This is a process. Like this is it's
not this
that
just
veil.
like
yeah
chaotic thing like a lot of people
right
just do have it structured.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's
not to say it's not like creative and stuff. It's just the best way for a lot of people, I think, at least, to, I don't know, get out your creativity into your medium is not to just be extremely spontaneous all the time.
Yeah.
Like in terms of actually when you create.
Yeah, man. I really do. I think people are going to listen to this episode, and this is going to be one that I think I just think this has I think all of them have such an important message, but this one in particular because you have this really profound career so far already just by looking at how tracks have done and such, but to hear your perspective I think is so important, and it's something that's not oftentimes seen on social media. It's not spoken about a lot. So I thank you for coming on. This has been fucking amazing, man, for real.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I hope people find it interesting.
Dude, I am absolutely sure people will find it interesting, man. And I just one thing I always mention is if you would like to do this again, I would love to. I just thought this was absolutely amazing. I want to stay in touch. I want to chat. And if you're ever in Arizona, where you're in Minneapolis?
Yeah, I just moved here.
Yeah. So if you are touring or if you're in Arizona for whatever reason, man, always down to chat, always down to hang out, do round 2 whenever you want.
Dude, yeah, I'm totally down for round 2. Like we talked about a lot, but we really didn't
I know.
Take too many tangents, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, we were chatting about this before, but I was like, dude, I have no questions beforehand, but we're going to go an hour and it's going to seem like that. And dude, we just, we went an hour and 20 right there. And it's just.
Is that what it is already? Damn.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? It goes by so quickly. And I love doing these. And another thing to just speak to in this whole conversation, which I think is so cool, is when, you get the time to just put away phones and just chat. I love that.
Yeah.
Shit.
No, this is probably the longest I've not looked at my phone in the last like week and a half.
Yeah. That's how I am, dude. I'm either podcasting or I'm on my phone just like looking at shit on Instagram or responding to messages.
I'm always on Reddit ignoring life.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So you said you have is there anything you want to kind of like promote? Just anything on the forefront? I know there's an album in the works, but that might be a little far out to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I do have a remix coming out Friday, but
cool.
I don't know when this is going to air, so.
This will be out next, let me think about this. This will be out next Thursday, so it will have been out by this point. So there's a remix out.
I will have a remix out on June 6th, so we'll be out by now. And yeah, the album, I don't think it's that far off. Like maybe a couple months most. Like at the most, but I'm up to like 8 songs, I think, and
cool.
I'm shooting to make it around 10. So
nice.
Yeah.
And that'll be the biggest release so far because you've had the single tracks, you've had the EP, the 4-track EP. So this will be the first album.
Yeah. That 4-track EP was I thought that was going to be the biggest thing for a while, funnily enough. Like, and I also never thought I'd make an EP. So This has been I've advanced a lot over the last few months.
Yeah, dude, that's fucking cool, man. And I'm genuinely really excited to see where this goes. And and I'd love to, yeah, man. When that comes out, of course, I'll promote the hell out of it. Maybe around that same
Thank
time
you.
we could do an episode, because that would probably be
Yeah,
about
that'd be cool.
6 months. Yeah, cool. I like it, and along the way, dude, I wanna see and hear what happens, man.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of stuff.